Hello, what do you guys think of the new slide, the starter slide there? My buddy Travis, one of the mods, made that, and I thought that was kind of fun. And by tomorrow, I will have figured out how to add a countdown timer. Force me to start on time, Fitz. How's everybody doing tonight? Hello, Darlene. Hey, PH. Hey, Chef Deb. Fitz is here, I know. Hey, Sharon Davies. Hey, Vanetta. There's Anthony Tommy Tom. The peeps are coming in. So, ladies and gentlemen and other non-binary folks, how do you do? I am Peter Alexievich, and this, of course, is the Live at 5 for Thursday, the 26th of September, day 947 of Russia's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. And I kind of want to start with, guys, listen, I'm sorry. I had a very busy day. I was out the door at 9. I was back at 12:30, had a 1 o'clock meeting, had another meeting at 6. And so the live today is a little bit slim. I just did not have the time to dedicate to it. But Travis sent me that video for the startup, which I thought was great. So we'll start with the sponsors. Again, I want to thank the board of directors, these 5 stalwart supporters of the channel: Ballerina Bobby, Dark Irish, Jason Willis Starrin, and Lars. Thank you, guys. And then let's take a look at last night's missile and drone attacks. So, in addition to today being, you know what, well, a long day, let's say. In addition to today being a long day, last night was a loud night, boy. It was a loud night. Now, of the 78 Shaheeds that were sent at us, 66 were shot down, and then another 8 were taken out by electronic warfare. So that's a total of 74. And 1 mysteriously returned to Russia. Nice. So that means only 3 drones got through. And 1 of them came down right in my neighborhood here. Hit the first floor of one of the nearby apartment complexes. It's a 5-story. That building's a little smaller than this one. It's a 5-story building. And the 4 apartments where the drone hit were damaged. But there were other aerial interceptions. I was rocked out of bed. The entire building shook, probably when the neighbors got hit by the drone. At about 2:29. Now, it might not have been the drone because it was really a powerful blast. I felt the building move. So that could have been an air interception of one of the missiles that came in. There were 4 X-5969 or KH-5969s that were taken out by territorial defense, right? All 4 of them were taken down. However, two missiles of an unknown type got through. Now, it's unclear where they came down, but it does appear that they came down within, around their targets. Last night was loud. The air defense was working. The air raid alert went off just after we finished the live last night. So as I was drifting off to sleep. And then at about 2:30, there was the big crash that woke me right out of bed. And then again at about 5:30. The thing went on so long that this morning at 9:47, the Air Force said that 8 drones were still in the air and were being tracked, and that 1 had been lost. I assume that that's the one that went back to Russia. So that air raid went on from about 1:30 in the morning until well past noon today. And let me tell you, everybody in town is exhausted, right? That's what these things do. They keep you up at night. They rock you out of bed. They, as long as the booms are continuing, you can't go back to sleep. It's very difficult to go back to sleep. And it is this grinding, day in, day out exhaustion that has the Ukrainian people, everybody's exhausted. Everybody's tired of this war. Everybody's tired of the constant terrorism being visited upon them. And who can blame them? And I felt very seen today. I was listening to Ukraine, the latest podcast, and Dominic Nichols essentially said, can you imagine what it's like every day, hearing this every day, seeing this every day, the constant grind? And I was like, yeah, I can absolutely imagine it. I live with it every fucking day. Now, this is the fourth scaled drone and missile attack, well, drone attack anyway, since the Toropets ammo depot was hit. Russia seems desperate to demonstrate that we are not out of weapons, that we have very deep pockets, that we can still throw 80 drones a night at you if we want to. That seems to be the thing. The only problem that I see with that plan is that the Ukrainian people do not give a fuck. They have no intention of surrendering to the Kremlin gremlins. No amount of terror there's 2.5 years of terror visited on this nation already. No amount of terror campaign is going to stop the Ukrainians from fighting for their sovereignty and freedom. It's not going to happen. What I can't help but think is that you people, you just lost at least half of your strategic reserves of ammunition, shells, and missiles. It has to be, right? With the 5 ammo dumps that were hit, it has to be about half of the strategic reserve. Now, if that's true, and you're using up everything to demonstrate that you still have plenty of everything, you're just going to use up what you have faster and accelerate your own demise. Because you can be sure that the Ukrainians are watching these other ammo depots that are within range of their, drone missiles, and they will be waiting for the opportunity. The day that the train pulls in with 100,000 rounds on it, that they don't have the manpower to move off the train in a day and get in secured bunkers. It was suggested to me today that the Ukrainian strikes were so successful because they hit them when they were loading and unloading the trains. And remember, we looked at the pictures, the satellite pictures the other day, and I pointed out the trains. It was pointed out to me today, that is not a coincidence, that the Ukrainians timed those strikes for when the maximum amount of ammunition, the Ukrainians likely timed those strikes to when the maximum amount of ammunition would be out in the open or on the open trains. Easy to hit, easy to start the chain reaction. And I had even more respect for the Ukrainians because I hadn't even thought of that. Here I am pointing out the goddamn trains, not thinking that that's a critical component of why these sites were hit now. I believe. I absolutely believe that that's the case. Now, all the good news today is about the $7.9 billion for Ukraine, that the $6 billion isn't going to expire. That's been extended to the end of Biden's presidency. But that is not the big news to me. To me, the big news is what Biden said at the press conference when he made the announcement about U.S. aid. And this is the exact quote. My message is clear. The United States will provide Ukraine with the support it needs to win this war. Now, that may not seem like much. You may be thinking to yourself, well, isn't that what we've been doing all along? It may have been what we've been doing, but no one has said it. Everyone has always only said, Russia must lose. No one has said, Ukraine needs to win. And it is our policy to ensure a Ukrainian victory, not merely a Ukrainian not losing. It's a very different thing. It's a very different thing. It's a different standard to hold yourself to. And I, for one, was extremely pleased to hear this. Now, here's some of the details of the aid. The big thing here, now, of course, it's hard for me to get excited about this because we are not doing a great job of delivering the aid we've promised. So, for example, today's package of $7.9 billion, the reality is that $5.5 billion of that is unexpiring presidential drawdown authority aid, right? The stuff that was going to expire at the end of the month. It's just been authorized. Nothing's been said about what's going to be sent. And then there's $2.4 billion for outright weapons purchases for Ukraine. So outright spending on Ukraine. So the $2.4 billion is real. But it's not $7.9 billion. These guys love their headlines, boy. But what they say does not always reflect the reality on the ground, and this is a good example. So of the $2.4 billion, it's going to JSOMs, a new Patriot battery, Patriot ammo, the training of 18 F-16 pilots in 2025. Biden also called an October meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, commonly referred to as the Ramstein Group. And at this meeting, it is Biden's stated intention to coordinate long-term and comprehensive aid for Ukraine. So all of that sounds good to me. The other thing that was good about this is that he ordered that everything is transferred to Ukraine before the end of his term. That's good news because that's a short timetable. That's months, not quarters and years, right? And this was all on top of a $375 million package that was announced last night, which includes HIMARS ammunition, air-to-ground weapons, 155 and 105 millimeter shells, armored vehicles, and anti-tank weapons. Probably things like the Javelin, etc. And tow missiles for the Abrams, for the Bradleys. Oh, shoot. Okay. So let's take a look at the front line. Up in the north in Vovchansk, it appears as though the Ukrainians are working to encircle that salient of Russians that are still in the city, in the northwestern part of the city. But there were no changes to the map. Now, if you look here, here's the Volodar map from yesterday. And now let's take a look. Take a look at that pocket down there around Volodar and see how it has changed today. You can see the Russians have advanced, it looks like 2.5 fields, and expanded the gray zone right up to that last farm area before the town. However, last night I reported that the word was that the 72nd Mechanized Brigade was pulling out of Volodar, that they were withdrawing under fire, as they say. This guy would beg to differ with me. Now tell me if you can hear his audio when I play this video clip.
Ми бійці 72-ї окремої механізованої бригади. Хочу розвіяти всі сумніви і думку псевдоекспертів про те, що 72-га бригада вийшла з міста Угледар. Наразі, попри важкі штурми і важкі обставини, ми на місці. Сьогодні, 26 лютого 2024 року, слава Україні!
Now, the question is, could you hear him? Was the audio streamed as part of the video? How great is it, though, that we can embed video like that? I hope you could hear him. So who this guy is, now it doesn't matter that he was speaking Ukrainian and you couldn't understand him if you could hear him. That is not what's important. What's important is the translation of what he said as I understand it. He said that despite heavy assaults and difficult conditions, we are still here. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. So despite the heavy assaults and difficult conditions, we are still here. He went on to say that he was here to dispel the rumors spread by pseudo-experts. Well, I have often said I am not an expert, so maybe I'm a pseudo-expert. Because I spread this rumor yesterday. I thought I got it from good sources. I guess I didn't. Or maybe the Ukrainians don't want the Russians to think they're in a withdrawal. Maybe this is a psychological operation. I don't know. It would, however, be completely unsurprising to me if it turned out that the Ukrainians were not leaving and that they were staying and fighting. That would I would not at all be surprised to learn that that was the fact. So the guys in Volodar are saying, no, we're not leaving. Down in the Donbass, there's no real movement on the front line except, remember this big bulge here toward Pokrovsk? See these arrows pointing outward here and out here? It appears, this is yesterday's map, if we look here, it appears that that blob has expanded a little bit south, a little bit north, and the concern is around this area here, this pocket here, and then this pocket to the north, where there is the threat of the encirclement of between 2,000 and 5,000 Ukrainian troops who are in those pockets right now and are increasingly surrounded on three sides by the Russians, with the risk, of course, of a complete encirclement. And that's something that we're keeping our eyes on. How are these guys doing in here? Can they get out of there? And will the Russians keep pushing to encircle them? Those are things we'll be looking for over the next few weeks. Germany, the Germans allocated 70 million euros to support Ukraine's energy systems. So mostly for small rural communities with small thermal power plant needs, solar panels, boilers, and generators. So the Germans are sending $70 million worth of electrical generation equipment, and we hope that that will keep my ass from freezing this winter. That's our great hope. So Vladimir Putin called a special meeting of the Russian Security Council, and get this, this guy is killing me, man. He's just killing me. Because he's so full of shit. He's just so full of shit, this fucking guy. And so in today's National Security Council meeting, what he had the nerve, the unmitigated narcissistic balls to say was that he's considering changing Russia's nuclear doctrine so that if a non-nuclear actor were to attack Russia with long-range missiles and to coordinate that attack with Ukraine or with the non-nuclear actor, that he would consider it an act of war, and immediately we would be at war with anybody that participated, and that would be an excuse for him to hit the nuclear button. That he would respond. Now, the U.S. has said publicly that in the event that Russia launches a nuke, we will respond with conventional means. He's doing the exact opposite. He's saying, if you dare to attack me in a fair fight with conventional means, I will nuke you. I mean, he knows that our nukes work. This is a psych out. It's a psychological operation intended to undermine our own confidence and play upon our deepest fears, the fears of Armageddon. Well, fuck that noise. You cannot live in fear, and you cannot concede fear to these thugs and gangsters just because they happen to have 6,000 nuclear warheads. No, what you got to do is you got to bitch slap them into line, and you got to say, oh, by the way, we're going to need your nukes because you can't have them, because you can't play nice. And if you can't play nice, you don't get to have nice things. Get them off the Security Council. If you have to rewrite the goddamn UN Charter, rewrite it. It's time. Because these bastards in China being able to stop all the progress in the world and sow chaos everywhere that they go is not a plan for success for this species. We need a better plan for success. Not just for Ukraine, not just for the US, but for everybody. There's enough on this planet for everybody if there weren't cunts like him who wanted to keep it all for themselves. Enough. Enough. Now this, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm going to play this clip because if you haven't heard it, you got to hear it.
I watched this poor guy yesterday at the United Nations. He didn't know what he was saying. They just don't know what to do. They're locked into a situation. It's sad. They just don't know what to do. Because Ukraine is gone. It's not Ukraine anymore. You can never replace those cities and towns, and you can never replace the dead people, so many dead people. Any deal, even the worst deal, would have been better than what we have right now. If they made a bad deal, it would have been much better. They would have given up a little bit, and everybody would be living, and every building would be built, and every tower would be aging for another 2,000 years.
So that last bit about 2,000 years, I don't know what that's about. There's very little here that's 2,000
I watched this poor guy yesterday at the...
So he starts off by suggesting that Zelensky is incoherent. Anybody who's ever listened to Zelensky talk knows that he is sharp as a tack. And not only that, he's got a history as an actor. He presents well. That's why he is the... It's not a great term to use, but it makes the point. He is the darling of the geopolitical Western scene. He's the guy who said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. He's the guy that when the full-scale invasion happened, he took the bull by the horns and made sure that Kyiv didn't fall. He's the guy who dressed in olive drab and hasn't changed since, for the most part. Because he's working. He's working every day. That guy puts in more of a day's work than this guy ever did in probably a month of his life. Ever. Notice this quote down here. Because this right here sums it all up for Donald Trump. Any deal, even the worst deal, would have been better than what we have right now. Because if you stand up for what's right, if you even believe that there are things that are right and things that are wrong, you're a chump and a sucker. Right? That's what he called POWs and the honored dead in the hallowed ground at Arlington National Cemetery. Chumps, suckers, losers. That's what he thinks of the men and women that are on the front lines right now, many of whom will make the ultimate sacrifice so that everybody else has a shot at defining their own destiny, rather than be tools of the billionaire class, which is what he wants. It's what all these people want. They want to be able to buy and sell human beings and not deal with them as human beings, but deal with them as objects that exist only for the gratification of the billionaire class. Well, I say, fuck that noise. That's a load of bullshit right there. So this is what we got out of Trump today. Now, I just want to highlight the differences here, right? By the difference between these two. On the left, on the sinister side, you have Donald Trump, who, in his infinite wisdom, has bought into what could be Kremlin talking points, that there is no Ukraine, that Ukraine is destroyed already, that it's all over, and that Russia's success is inevitable. Nothing is inevitable in a war. Nothing is inevitable. The Russian war machine is rotted out hollow by its own corruption. And we see it every day. The incompetence of these people, that they cannot manage to raise a counteroffensive in Kursk, should tell everybody that it's they who don't know what they're doing. They're the ones who are trapped here with no plan B and without the imagination to figure out another off-ramp for themselves. And so they have no choice but to double down on everything and just keep feeding everybody they can into the meat grinder. That is not a strategy for success, boy. It is really not. And then on the other hand, you have a guy who says that we're going to do everything that we can to get Ukraine to win, to help Ukraine win, because we stand by our allies. Trump called our allies deadbeats the other day, exaggerating the distinctions between U.S. contributions to the Ukraine war and Europe's contributions, getting everything wrong. None of it was right. Denigrating Zelensky in that speech. On the left, you have a man that would subvert all of democracy in a violent coup to keep himself in power. On the right, you have a man who gave up his position willingly, even possibly strategically. There is a theory that Joe Biden was always intended to only be a one-term president, and that what he would do was wait until the last minute to drop out of the race so that he could be a lightning rod for the Trump campaign, take all the negative publicity, then drop out and put Kamala in and throw the Trump campaign into chaos, which is precisely what happened. Now, whether or not the lightning rod theory is true, I can't say. But Joe Biden has proven, he's not my guy, I'll tell you. I never thought much of Joe Biden. But in these 4 years, he has done an incredible job. And if he were running, I would vote for him. Though I do prefer the current choice on the ballot. Okay. So guys, that's it for me. That's the top line for tonight. Big thanks to the sponsors of this week's lives here on YouTube. The board of directors, Ballerina Bobby, Dark Irish, Jason Willis Starn, and Lars. Big thanks to the mods. I know Cheyenne had to duck out early this evening, but Cheyenne, Vanetta, Max Power, Jay, Travis. And then big thanks to Lars M., who's got the Discord server and the Alexievich archive. Big thanks to Nightshade, or D. Ellis here, who's got the Peter's Peeps public group where all the lives are posted afterward. And I want to give a shout out to F and Hell too, just for having the best handle on the Tickety Talk. And that will take us to Q&A. So guys, questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need, anything from anybody. I'm curious about the maintenance of the nuke silos and the other missiles. Just look at what happened recently with the testing of their newest missile. And Walter, it's important to note, right, that is the fourth test of the Sarmat RS-28 that has failed in a row. Over the last 2 years, they've tested various different tests with that missile, and every one of them has either blown up on launch attempt, this case in the silo, once at a gantry, or has failed after the initial solid rocket fuel burn. When the secondary burn kicked in, the missiles fell apart. Right? Like they just fell apart. One over the Arctic Ocean, one over the Pacific. So Walter, as I understand it, there is not a consensus among Russia experts as to the condition of the nuclear arsenal. There is not. There is a variety of opinion. However, some of the most valid and trustworthy sources out there do kind of feel, the general feeling is that the intercontinental ballistic missile, the deployed intercontinental ballistic missiles, are in fine working shape. The tactical nukes in storage, likely none of them work. They use the first generation layer cakes used a lithium deuteride fissile trigger, and that's got a 12.4 year decay rate, half-life. So none of them work. We can be sure of that because they haven't spent the money to fix them. How do I know that they haven't spent the money to fix them? Because it's expensive, and the Russians have as many nukes as us, but they spend 1/5 the budget. I mean, and then you have the corruption inside. None of those generals are going to be spending money on tritium, which is another fissile trigger solution for more modern nuclear weapons. With the tritium, you got to refresh them like every 18 months. Well, it's expensive to make tritium. It's expensive to put it to get it into a form where you can then inject it into your missiles so that it can act as a primer, as the fissile trigger, right? So by all accounts, they don't have the budget for that. And then you think about how much gets stolen from a Russian military budget. Why would we think that the missile program would be exempt? It's endemic. Just look at the Admiral Kutuzov. Or the defensive lines. Where did the 12 billion rubles go for building defensive lines in Kursk? There's very little there for 12 billion rubles. So I think the short answer is we don't know. The longer answer is, in all likelihood, very few of the tactical nukes are still in working condition. Very few of the ICBMs are likely to be in working condition. However, they have 1,700 missiles deployed, and those are all likely in working condition. What we do not want to do is find out. And I think that's a big thing that holds the traditional diplomatic corps back, right? The traditional diplomatic corps fears those Russian missiles. Am I hung up? I can't seem to access the chat. There we go. Oh, hey, Travis. Definitely sounded good with the meeting today with Biden and Harris. I only had information fits up until before the meeting with Biden. I don't know what happened later at the meeting with Harris. Pitiful Pootie hasn't, or in the meeting with Biden for that matter. I only have the press conference before it. PT, the world's greatest salesman who is also incoherent. Exactly. Exactly. That's brilliant, dude. Because these guys, they always have these, right? Like Joe Biden is both a criminal mastermind and head of an international family criminal syndicate, and he's a doddering old fool. Kamala Harris is dumb. She isn't smart. But then what else did he say about her? I don't know. But they hold these contradictory ideas. And it's the same with their policies. Immigrants are violent, drug addicts, rapists, etc. They're coming to this country only to take your jobs. Well, wait. Are they coming here to commit crimes and live off the system, or are they coming here to take our jobs? Which is it? It's Schrodinger's immigrant, right? Lazy, living off the system, but here to take my job. I guess that would make Zelensky Schrodinger's salesman. Thank you, PH. Right, PT. Kamala Harris is dumb. She's a dumb person. Oh, but she kicked my ass in the debate. Which, of course, he's saying he knows the truth. He has to know the truth, but he's saying the opposite, right? He's constantly talking about how he won the debate. It's ridiculous. So, let's see. So, guys, it's a little bit early, but I'll tell you, I am exhausted. Last night was very loud. I did not get much sleep. And then, like I said, I've been up and going since 8 o'clock this morning. So it's a long day. So are there any final thoughts, any final questions? And I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. As F and Hell suggested, on my TikTok profile, I don't know if it's on my YouTube profile. It probably is. It should be the PayPal. And if anybody wants to sponsor a video, just go ahead and PayPal me, and I'll see that you get a video shout out and sponsorship, since the live sponsorships are locked up for the next week. Walter's looking forward to the Walls and Vance debates. You must be a sadomasochist, because you're looking forward to what Harris will do to Vance, and also to what Vance will do to you. Because listening to Vance is going to be very hard for me, I'll tell you that. Anything else, guys? So, guys, it is getting close to the end of the month. I'm starting to worry about rent. If anybody wants a video sponsorship, just hit up the PayPal. Is the VP debate Tuesday? I don't know, Eli. When is it? When is the VP debate? Does anybody have that date handy or off the top of their heads? I do not know when it is. I know that Trump has canceled the third debate. He will not put himself through that again. Did you see North Carolina may be in play now because of this Republican governor scandal? The candidate for governor, anyway, former lieutenant governor. October 1st, Tuesday, says Sharon Davies. And W.C. Field seems to think so too, as does Max Power. Walter Williamson is a sadomasochist. And it looks like Max has confirmed Tuesday, October 1st. Richard Prexis says the same. There it is, 9 p.m. I assume that's Eastern time. That'll be past my bedtime. I will have to catch the highlights on a closer look the next day. All right. So, guys, I think that's it for me. I'm going to call it a night. Ladies and gentlemen, other non-binary folks, mammals, the whole brotherhood of warm-blooded creatures. Live at 5 from Kyiv, I'm Peter Alexievich, wishing you a good night and a pleasant tomorrow. Take care.